Okay, so today we're diving into something I think a lot of us are interested in, wealth. But we're going to be looking at it from a maybe a different angle than you'd normally think of when you think about money or finances.
Yeah.
So we've been digging into this YouTube transcript. It features the Buddhist teachings of this teacher, Hoa Tung Kong.
Right.
And, we see all this advice out there about budgeting and investing.
Right.
But this source, it offers a completely different perspective. It's less about like tips and tricks and more about this deeper origin of where wealth comes from and how we might cultivate it,
Yeah.
according to these Buddhist teachings. So our goal is to kind of unpack some of these key ideas from the transcript and see if it maybe shifts your perspective on how we think about prosperity in our own lives.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stood out to me most in the transcript is that it really kind of goes against a lot of the common ideas we have about wealth,
Mhm.
right? Like, we're often told that if we just work hard enough or if we're smart enough, uh, we'll be successful financially.
Right. It's all about our efforts, right?
Exactly, yeah. But this source kind of pushes back on that
Yeah.
and suggests that the reasons behind our financial situations might actually go much deeper than just, our current efforts and skills.
Right. So it's not just about, working hard in this moment or even having the right business idea. There might be something else at play, right?
Right.
That's really intriguing.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's jump right into it, because the transcript starts off with this really strong statement, talks about significant wealth. They describe it as kajat at hung he, and they say this kind of wealth, it originates from your mun.
Right.
And mun, as I understand it, we can translate it as destiny or fate. So it's suggesting that whether or not you become wealthy might not be entirely up to you in the sense of just like your choices in this moment. It's kind of predetermined or at least influenced by this inherent you come into the world with.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have wondered this. Like, why is it that some people just seem to like attract wealth so easily?
Right. Right.
Like things just seem to work out for them financially.
Yeah, they have the Midas touch.
Yeah, exactly. And then there are others who, they work really hard. They seem to be doing all the right things.
Okay.
They have the drive. They have the opportunities, but they just never seem to reach that same level of financial success.
And the transcript even uses a phrase for that, right?
Yeah, it says, Van ki kokan kung kung kam gi,
Right, right.
which basically means like your drive and your opportunities are no less than theirs.
Right. You're just as capable in a sense.
Yeah, but maybe the difference is in this inherent munt.
Hmm.
Like maybe they just have a different capacity for wealth.
So it's not a level playing field, according to this, right?
Right.
It's more like everyone's born with different financial potential in a way. And even your career path, the Nying now, your
Yeah.
profession. It goes on to say that that's just a circumstance, a duyan.
Hmm.
So even that's not necessarily something you've chosen, with complete freedom.
Right.
It's kind of playing out within this framework of your existing men.
So like maybe your chosen profession is just a manifestation of your underlying potential for wealth rather than the cause of it.
Right. And this is where it gets really, well, I don't know if it's maybe a little disheartening, but it's definitely interesting. The transcript uses this really vivid example. It says, like, imagine someone who doesn't have wealth in their mund, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they suddenly receive a huge sum of money. Like, say, the bank just, gifted it to them.
Mm.
The transcript suggests that they wouldn't actually be able to hold on to it.
Oh, wow.
They would know how to manage it. It would slip through their fingers. It would disappear probably within a couple of months because they just don't have that foundational potential for wealth in their mind.
So it's not even just about like, financial literacy or knowing how to manage money.
Right.
It's like there's something deeper that's determining your ability to maintain and grow wealth.
So it's really making us question, like, all these assumptions we have about, like, how much control we actually have over our financial outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you think about it, a lot of the financial advice out there is based on the idea that if you just follow the right steps, you'll be successful.
Right. Anyone can do it.
Yeah, but this perspective is saying, like, hold on a second. Maybe there's something else going on here that we need to consider.
Right. Right.
It's not to say that our efforts don't matter, but it's just suggesting that there might be these deeper forces at play.
Yeah. Yeah. And this leads to a a pretty strong critique, actually, of all those biket fatai.
What's that?
Yeah, so that means like uh, secrets to getting rich. All those books, all those courses, those gurus out there promising, the fast track to wealth. The speaker in the video actually dismisses them as ja.
Oh, yeah. So that means fake. Right.
Yeah, fake. He's basically saying like these things they don't really work.
Right.
Because if true wealth is based on your ment, like we were just talking about, then these techniques you learn, they're not really going to be effective unless you already have that underlying capacity.
So like even if you read all the books and go to all the seminars, if you don't have the right munt, you're not going to become wealthy.
That's what the transcript is suggesting. The logic, at least from this point of view, is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
It's saying like these books, these courses, they don't actually lead to genuine wealth for most people. The only people who really become wealthy from them are the authors and the speakers who are selling the ideas.
Hmm. That's kind of cynical, but it's also I don't know, it's kind of thought-provoking.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it kind of makes you think.
Yeah.
How many times have we, come across this advice, this promise of a sure path to riches?
Right,
And,
right.
and maybe this perspective is saying, if your mun isn't aligned with that, those strategies, no matter how good they are, they're not going to work.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a different way of thinking about it.
So then this takes us to another really important concept in these Buddhist teachings, which is Hanqua.
Hunkwa. Okay.
Yeah, so Hanqua is often translated as karma, the principle of cause and effect.
Right, right. I've heard of that.
And the transcript basically explains that your current level of wealth, whether you've fat dai duknyo, whether you've attained a lot or a little wealth, is a direct result of actions you've taken in the past. It's described as hindo doi trik da trong, like what you've planted in previous lifetimes, essentially.
So it's not just about what we're doing in this life. It's about
Yeah.
like our actions from past lives also having an impact on our current financial situation.
Yeah, that's the idea. Like, think of it less as, some kind of cosmic scorecard, like you're being judged.
Yeah.
It's more about this continuous cycle of cause and effect that extends beyond just this lifetime. That's how I understand it.
That's interesting.
So, like, if you're, financially comfortable now, this perspective would say, okay, well, that's because of positive actions you took in the past.
Okay.
And they actually use a phrase for that, kakahane kahatong. Those individuals, they were successful, they did good things in the past.
Mm.
But then conversely, if you're facing financial challenges, well, that's attributed to kakahane kahankal, like less positive actions from the past. So it's really bringing in this much broader time frame, almost spanning, multiple lifetimes to understand our current situation.
So like our past actions are kind of creating the conditions for our present financial reality.
Exactly. And it made me think, have you ever noticed, like, in your own life, maybe patterns of, like, good fortune or bad fortune?
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone has those moments where you're like, wow, I can't believe how lucky I am.
Right.
Or, on the flip side, why does this always happen to me?
Yeah, and maybe this hanqua, this karma, this cause and effect, it offers a way to understand those patterns. It's like maybe it's not all just random chance,
Right, right.
but it's not just about looking backwards either.
Oh, okay.
The transcript also talks about how we can kind of move forward, how we can create a better financial future.
So what does it say about that?
Well, it emphasizes this idea that tunhan mukata gokwa, which means basically cultivating good deeds is the only way to get positive results in the future.
Okay, so it's not just about accepting our current situation. It's about actively trying to change it for the better
Right, exactly.
by doing good things, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And this is where the idea of bolthi comes in, which means giving or generosity.
Okay, bolthi, giving.
So the transcript outlines 3 key types of giving, and each one is associated with its own specific reward.
Oh, interesting.
So first we have tai bolthi.
Tai bolthi.
Yeah, and that's material giving, like, donating money to charity.
Okay.
And this leads to wealth. It's described as duk tiankua. You'll receive money and possessions.
So the more you give materially, the more wealth you'll receive in the future.
That's the idea. Then there's fa bolthi.
Bolthi.
Yeah, and that's the giving of knowledge or teachings.
Oh, yeah.
So like, teaching someone a skill or sharing your wisdom. Uh-huh.
And this is said to lead to intelligence. Duk thung min tritu.
Makes sense.
And then finally, there's vui bothi,
Bothi, okay, yeah.
which is it's translated as fearless giving or protection.
Fearless giving.
Yeah, so like, standing up for someone who's being bullied or helping someone feel safe.
Okay.
And this is said to lead to health and longevity. Duk kaint sung lo.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty interesting, right?
Yeah, so there's like a specific type of giving for each thing that people generally want, right? Wealth, intelligence, and health.
Yeah.
It's very specific.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool how it addresses these very basic like human desires. Like these aren't just some like abstract spiritual ideals.
Right.
These are things that everyone wants, to be wealthy, to be intelligent, to be healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's saying that there's a path to achieving those things through these different forms of giving.
But here's the important caveat.
The transcript is really clear on this point. Just wishing for these things or praying for them. They even mention, like, praying to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas every day.
Right.
That's not going to magically bring these things about if you're not also putting in the work and actually creating the causes through these acts of giving.
So it's not enough to just like hope for these things to happen. You actually have to go out and do something to make them happen.
Exactly.
You have to create the causes.
Yeah, it's about putting in the work, not just hoping for, a handout, so to speak.
So what about like modern financial practices, right?
Right.
Like investing in stocks or real estate?
Yeah, so the transcript actually touches on that, and it's interesting because the speaker kind of expresses a hesitation. He says, Do tu fa budo tu vao betne toido hong ron lam.
So he's not really familiar with those things?
Yeah, it seems like he's not really endorsing them or recommending them.
Right. And I think that ties into this larger warning about the impermanence of worldly wealth. They talk about this concept of namnya kano, which means like 5 shared owners.
5 shared owners.
And these owners are often interpreted as like rulers, thieves, fear, floods.
Oh, wow.
And even, like prodigal heirs or people who just waste your money.
So basically all these forces that can take your wealth away from you.
Yeah. And the point is, like, even if you do accumulate a lot of wealth, it's not really yours,
It doesn't truly belong to you.
Yeah, it's always subject to these external forces, these things you can't control.
Mm-hmm.
And they even use this pretty dramatic example. They talked about, 100 treek bin to 10 treeks.
So like going from 100 million to 10 million, that's a huge loss.
Yeah, and they talk about how this can lead to like serious emotional consequences, even, people taking their own lives because of these financial losses.
So it's not just about the money itself, it's about the emotional attachment to the money. Yeah, and the suffering that can come from that when you're, really clinging to this idea that this wealth is yours and it's permanent and then it suddenly disappears. It can be devastating.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. If you're identifying yourself with your wealth, then when you lose that wealth, you kind of lose yourself in a way.
Yeah, exactly. The transcript describes it as tam tui kanchu moinge trai kwangai tang kon noi kumbre alam chuban ko din you vai tu mi lam tu min chiu.
So like your mind is constantly changing based on external circumstances.
Right.
And that leads to suffering.
Yeah. You're basically putting your happiness in the hands of these external factors that you can't control. So, if this is all true, then what is the real path to wealth? What should we be doing? And this is where it kind of circles back to that idea of bumti kumdum.
Okay, generosity and offerings.
Yeah. The transcript specifically mentions making offerings to your parents, kumdum chame, and also to the triple gem, kumdum tembo, which is the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Mm-hmm. And also just practicing general generosity towards all living beings. So it's not just about giving to, religious institutions or your family.
Right.
It's about like cultivating this general attitude of generosity and giving in all aspects of your life.
So like even small acts of kindness can make a difference.
Yeah, that's the idea. And the underlying principle is that Bien kolti adung sakong tatio. Like the money that you use will never be lacking.
Oh, so it's not about hoarding money or trying to save as much as possible.
Right.
It's about using it to help others.
Yeah. And this is where it gets really counterintuitive, I think, compared to like typical financial advice where it's all about like save, save, save.
Exactly.
But here it's like, no, use your wealth, let it flow, let it circulate. That's how you ensure you'll always have enough.
It's like the more you give, the more you'll receive.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. And what's even more interesting is that it actually cautions against accumulating too much wealth. They talk about how it can lead to negative consequences like tainan and taiha.
Oh, accidents and disasters.
Yeah, so it's not about becoming the richest person. It's
Okay.
about having enough 빈돈건교.
Enough to meet your needs and then focusing on giving back.
Yeah, and this is something I was kind of wrestling with, because if our profession, our 능력 is just a duyen, like a circumstance that we're kind of born into,
Uh-huh.
then does that mean our choices don't matter at all?
That's a good question.
Like, is it all just fate?
Yeah, yeah.
And what I'm understanding from this teaching is that, well, yes, your men sets a kind of foundation,
Okay.
but your actions still matter.
Oh, okay.
Your current actions still shape your future, your results.
So even within the constraints of Munt, you still have agency.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not about passive acceptance. It's about actively engaging in these practices like generosity
Hmm.
that can create, a more positive outcome, a more financially abundant future.
It's interesting, like, you can kind of see how that might play out, right?
Mm.
Like, if you're constantly being generous and helpful to others, you're probably going to build stronger relationships.
Right.
People are going to be more likely to want to do business with you
Yeah.
or, help you out if you're in need.
Right.
So
Right.
it's not just about some, like, mystical force.
Right.
It's about, like, creating the conditions for positive things to happen.
Yeah. It's about aligning your actions with your intentions and kind of setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So to bring this deep dive to a close, I think what we've learned from this Hwatung Kung transcript is a very different way of looking at wealth.
Yeah, it definitely challenges a lot of our assumptions about money and how to achieve financial success.
Yeah, it's suggesting that, our financial situation is deeply connected to this idea of destiny.
Right.
And it's shaped by past actions, not just our actions in this life.
Wow.
And that the path to future well-being, financially speaking, isn't about accumulating more, but about cultivating this mindset of giving, of generosity.
Yeah, and I think that's a really powerful message, especially in a world where we're constantly being bombarded with messages about, getting rich quick and accumulating more and more stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And for you, our listener who's interested in understanding things thoroughly and efficiently, we've tried to give you a good overview of this really unique perspective.
And I think it's a perspective that's worth considering, even if you don't, agree with all of it.
Right.
It's just food for thought.
Yeah, yeah. So that leaves us with a final thought for you to ponder.
Right.
Reflecting on all of this, how might you reevaluate your own relationship with wealth?
Yeah.
Does this idea of mana resonate with you at all?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question for people to ask themselves.
And if so, how might it shift your understanding of personal responsibility and the pursuit of prosperity?
Yeah, it definitely gives us a new lens to look at these things.
Yeah, it's a different way to approach your financial journey. So we hope you'll take some time to think about it and maybe even explore these ideas further on your own.
Yeah, that's a great idea.